The meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin may not take place next week in Budapest. CNN reports this, citing its own sources. According to a White House representative, the anticipated meeting between U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has been postponed for now. Rubio and Lavrov have different expectations regarding a possible end to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The day before, Rubio and Lavrov held a phone conversation. Afterwards, officials came to a conclusion. The Russian opposition has not advanced far enough beyond its maximalist course. The U.S. Secretary of State is unlikely to recommend holding a meeting between Putin and Trump next week. But Rubio and Lavrov may speak again this week. Rubio emphasized the importance of the upcoming meetings as an opportunity for Moscow and Washington to cooperate on ending the war in line with President Trump's vision. Meanwhile, the Kremlin described the phone conversation as a constructive discussion during which possible concrete steps for implementing the agreements reached by Trump and Putin during their phone call were discussed. Let us recall that after the phone conversation with Putin, the American leader stated that they had agreed on a meeting of high-level advisors. On Donald Trump's Truth Social network, he wrote, The
first meetings for the U.S. will be conducted by Secretary of State Marco Rubio along with other individuals, who will be appointed.
It has been more than 2 months since Trump last met with Putin in person in Anchorage, Alaska. The meeting, which lasted almost 3 hours, ended without reaching an agreement, although both leaders actively spoke about progress. Trump publicly called on Kyiv and Moscow to immediately stop the war. After meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House on October 17th, Trump stated that both sides should halt at the front line. Bataysk in the Rostov region was under attack by UAVs on the night of October 21st. There is destruction in the city. Eyewitnesses are sharing footage after the drone raid. Before that, several explosions were heard in the city. The Russian Ministry of Defense claimed that they allegedly shot down 34 UAVs over the Rostov region. Meanwhile, Putin is being dissuaded from going to Budapest. Amid preparations for a potential meeting between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump in Budapest, an unexpected and conspiratorial warning was voiced in Russia. Retired Russian Foreign Intelligence Colonel and former illegal SVR agent Andrei Bezrukov publicly stated that Putin could become the target of, quote, a British plot to assassinate him. Bezrukov urged Putin not to go to Budapest. This was reported by the publication Express. Speaking on Russian state television, Andrei Bezrukov called for the anticipated meeting with Trump to be urgently moved to Dubai. Earlier, the media reported that for Putin to get to Budapest, he would have to make a detour of 5,000 kilometers. The publication AirLife has published the likely route that Putin could take to fly to Budapest for a possible meeting with Trump. The aircraft will be escorted by Turkish and Russian fighter jets to eliminate threats from drones or missiles. The plane will most likely fly over the Caspian Sea, Iran, Turkey, the Mediterranean Sea, Montenegro, Serbia, and Hungary. The publication reminded that, due to European Union sanctions and the restriction of airspace for the Russian Federation after its invasion of Ukraine, Russian government aircraft, including the presidential Ilyushin 96, are not allowed to fly over most of Europe. Meanwhile, Bulgaria has announced that it will open an air corridor at the request of the Russian Federation for Vladimir Putin's arrival in Budapest for a meeting with US President Donald Trump. Ukraine has begun purchasing AH-1Z Viper attack helicopters and UH-1Y Venom transport helicopters from the US company Bell. A letter of intent was signed between the Ukrainian government and the company, according to Defense Express. Experts noted that these are very advanced and the latest upgrades of the legendary AH-1 Cobra and UH-1 Iroquois helicopters. It is noted that, according to the company, the agreement provides for an assessment of approaches to industrial cooperation, as well as Bell's cooperation with the US government. Meanwhile, HIMARS will soon receive a new option. The rockets will have a new warhead in the form of cruise munitions. This will make it possible to strike 3 targets with a single rocket and increase their range by 100 kilometers, writes Defense Express. At the same time, US President Donald Trump stated that the United States possesses secret weapons that many people are not even aware of.
We have weapons that people don't even know about. I started developing them 4 years ago.
Meanwhile, in Washington, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky held a meeting with representatives of the defense company Raytheon, which manufactures, among other things, Tomahawk and Patriot missile systems. The parties discussed possible avenues of cooperation to strengthen Ukraine's air defense and increase its long-range capabilities, as well as prospects for joint production. On his Telegram channel, Volodymyr Zelensky wrote,
"There are solutions that can enhance the protection of lives in Ukraine. We are working at all levels to ensure their implementation."
A joint statement by Volodymyr Zelensky and European leaders was also published. It states that hostilities must cease immediately, and the current line of contact should serve as the starting point for negotiations. The statement emphasizes the need to increase pressure on the Russian economy and its defense industry. The countries are working on measures that will allow the full value of immobilized Russian sovereign assets to be used to provide Ukraine with the necessary resources.
Russian dictator Vladimir Putin could be arrested if he flies to the summit in Hungary through Polish airspace. As reported by Reuters, this was stated by Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski. He noted that in this case, Poland might be forced to execute the international arrest warrant.
I cannot guarantee that an independent Polish court would not order the government to escort such a plane in order to hand the suspect over to the court in The Hague.
Thus, the International Criminal Court's warrant obliges member states to arrest Putin if he sets foot on their territory. Sikorski added that the Russian side is aware of this, and therefore the plane will likely take alternative routes. At the same time, in order to avoid flying over Ukraine, the Russian delegation would have to pass through the airspace of at least one European Union country, all of which are members of the International Criminal Court. According to Politico, some European leaders want to be present at the meeting between the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin and US President Donald Trump. Furthermore, according to the publication, the EU insists that if the meeting in Budapest takes place, Ukraine must be at the table, otherwise the West risks ending up with peace on the aggressor country's terms, the article notes. Meanwhile, the head of Russia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Sergei Lavrov, rejected Trump's idea of freezing the war along the front line. In particular, he made it clear that Moscow is not ready for an immediate ceasefire in Ukraine. Lavrov stated that Russia remains fully committed to the formula for achieving a long-term peace, and that an immediate ceasefire allegedly would not lead to anything. It should be noted that on October 16th, Donald Trump announced that he plans to meet with Putin in Budapest to discuss the possibility of ending the war. The meeting could take place next week. In Europe, there have been explosions at 2 oil refineries linked to Russia in the past 24 hours. In particular, there was an explosion and fire at the large MOL oil refinery in Hungary. This is the country's main refinery, which also processes Russian oil. Due to the incident, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán held consultations with the management of the oil refinery and the Minister of Internal Affairs. And in Romania, there was an explosion at a refinery owned by the Russian company Lukoil. According to media reports, an employee of a contractor company was injured and taken to the hospital. It is noted that the incident occurred during repair work at the facility. Meanwhile, Russia has delivered oil for the first time to a newly built oil refinery in Georgia. According to Reuters, on October 6th, more than 105,000 tons of Siberian light crude oil were delivered from Novorossiysk to the Kulevy oil terminal. The agency notes that this is the first time Russian oil is not simply transiting through Georgia, but is being processed directly within the country. According to the publication, Moscow is thus testing the possibility of offsetting its domestic refining shortfall by using foreign facilities. The article points out that the refinery in Kulevy is the first oil refinery in Georgia. In this way, the country is trying to reduce its dependence on fuel from Russia, Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Romania. It should be noted that Russia is still experiencing a fuel crisis, which arose due to sanctions and Ukrainian drone strikes on Russian refineries. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will meet on October 30th in Budapest. This was reported by the Financial Times, citing an unnamed German official. According to the source, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán plans to present his proposals ahead of the meeting between US President Donald Trump and Russian dictator Vladimir Putin including the possibility of Trump holding talks with European leaders. At the same time, the official clarified that nothing has been confirmed yet. Earlier, CNN reported that the meeting, which was supposed to take place this week, was cancelled. The reason was not specified, but one of the channel's sources said that Lavrov and Rubio have different expectations regarding ending the war in Ukraine. According to CNN, the American side believes that the Russian opposition has not made sufficient progress regarding the previously stated ultimatum demands. At the same time, it is unlikely that Rubio will now advise moving the Trump-Putin meeting to Budapest. On October 20th, the U.S. Secretary of State and the head of the Foreign Ministry of the aggressor country held a phone conversation. The State Department's statement said that the parties were supposed to discuss further steps following the phone conversation between Trump and Putin. The Kremlin described the phone conversation as a constructive discussion during which possible concrete steps for implementing the agreements reached by Trump and Putin during their phone call were discussed. Let us recall that after the phone conversation with Putin, the US president stated that they had agreed on a meeting of high-level advisors. On the Truth Social network, Donald Trump wrote that the initial US meetings will be led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, along with other individuals who will be appointed.